Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Maharaj Nimi meets the 9 Yogendras, text 38 onwards. Avidyamano api avabhati hidvayo dhyatur dhiya swapna manorathayo dekha tat karma sankalpa vikalpakam mano buddho nirundhayad bhayam tata sayat. So the sages are saying, although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences it as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. This imaginary experience of a world separate from Krishna can be compared to the acts of dreaming and desiring. When the conditioned soul dreams at night at something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or avoid, he creates a reality that has no existence beyond his own imagination. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. So yesterday we were studying, it was said, Bhayam Dvitiya Biniveshita Syat. So Bhayam, the real fear is because of, let me clearly read. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as a material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as worshipable deity and his very life and soul. So further speaking, it is said, although the duality of material world does not ultimately exist. So in the purport it is said, although the conditioned mind is bewildered by the objects of sense gratification offered by Maya or illusion, but if one takes to the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, such material sense gratification gradually dissipates, for it is merely a mental concoction of the conditioned soul. So we'll say, no, it's not the mental concoction because the objects are there. How can we say it's not for sense gratification? Well, the objects are there, but as it is said, it is a objects of sense gratification offered by Maya. So Maya means, Maya, what Prabhupada said, Maya means that which is not. So if the object of sense gratification is there, can we say it is not? Mayavadis say it's an illusion, it's not there. But it's there, we see it. It's very much there, whether it is member of opposite sex or something we see, something we want to eat, something we want to smell, it's there. So the real effect of Maya is when we want to enjoy it for ourselves, then that energy is illusory energy, because we really cannot enjoy it for ourselves. that consciousness is Maya. But if one takes to the unalloyed devotion service, now what is unalloyed devotion service? As it is mentioned in previous verse, Rupa Goswami says that if we use it in the service of Krishna, then that is the real purpose. So then it is not Maya, then it is Yog Maya, because it's same object is connecting us with Krishna. That is the real purpose. Otherwise, it's all mental concoction. It's not for our enjoyment. And later in 12th canto, we'll read wonderful examples. And it is 24 gurus. It is mentioned different kinds of gurus and how different animals get bewildered by different hunters and they get captured. Why? Because they went for this sense, this items which really they thought they can enjoy if they capture, if they get it, if the animals get it, they will thought they will enjoy, but they don't enjoy. They get captured instead. We'll read it in detail over there. So this, our thought of enjoying or our endeavor to enjoy things separately from Krishna, that is Maya, nothing else. And this Maya, it means our thought or our endeavor to enjoy things separately from Krishna, it's so strong. Krishna himself says, Devi Hesha Gunmai Mammaya Duratyaya. It's very, very strong. All we have to do is take shelter of Krishna, then that thought, that propensity to enjoy separately from Krishna will go away. And as it is said here, it slowly goes away, gradually dissipates. Srila Sridhar Swami has emphasized by the words avyabhicharini bhakti that one cannot dissipate the illusion of material sense gratification unless one takes to the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, avyabhicharini bhakti, bhakti yogin sevte, sargunan samtitiyatan brahm bhuyaya kalpate. When we are engaged in avyabhicharini bhakti, what is avyabhicharini? Vyabhicharini is referred to a lady who has many paramours or husbands, we can say, many boyfriends or lovers. Means she is paying attention or trying to give satisfaction to all of them. Avyabhicharini means single-pointed bhakti, only to serve Krishna. And with no other ulterior motive also. So then, if we do that, then it dissipates the illusion of material sense gratification. Not just by jnana we can do that. But bhakti process takes us there. As Srila Rupa Goswami has stated, Anya vilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. Unalloyed devotional service cannot be mixed with material sense gratification or mental speculation. The servant must act only for the satisfaction of the master. So the servant must act only for the satisfaction of the master. Similarly, Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam ekam sharanam vraja. One must see only Krishna everywhere and must act exclusively for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna, the eternal master of every living entity. So that should be the only purpose. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted several verses from Harivansha, illustrating that the living entity, bewildered by identifying with this material body, home, family, friends, and so on, and thus entangled in the cycle of birth and death, accepts phantasmagoria as a reality. Phantasmagoria means that's something that doesn't exist, like the flower in the sky doesn't exist. And that's why we are thinking of everything, home, family, friends, so on, as reality, but they're not. It is our attachment to them, thinking that I will get happiness by taking care of my home or family or friends, or by being in relationship with them. Yeah, some happiness or so-called happiness and some satisfaction is there, but ultimate happiness is not. Because ultimately, either we will leave them or they will leave us at the time of death. So it doesn't give real happiness. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Shravana Kirtanadi Lakshan, if one seriously desires to vanquish the duality of material illusion, one must adopt the process of chanting and hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord. That's the only way. There is no other way. Not Jnana Yoga, not Hatha Yoga. Definitely not. Only by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cited the following Vedic reference, which is Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam Ev Kevalam, Kalau Nastev, Nastev, Nastev Gatiranyatha. According to Vedic literatures, the living entities of this Kali Yuga are very feeble in their power to understand spiritual knowledge. Their minds are always disturbed and they're lazy and misguided by so many bogus leaders. They're further described in the Bhagavatam as Nihasatvan, impatient and impious, Durmedhan, possessed of weak intelligence, and Rasitayusha, very short-lived. Therefore, one who seriously wants to overcome the ignorance of material life must surrender to the process of chanting and hearing the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. As well as reciting and rendering submissive oral reception to the transcendental literatures presented by the Lord, such as Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. It should be understood that the living entity is completely spiritual and never actually becomes mixed with material energy. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, although the living entity Shuddha, pure spirit soul, he imagines that he is a material creation and thus entangles himself in the network of illusion called the Deha Pratya Kalatradishva. So living entity, and another aspect is living entity is completely spiritual. The soul is spiritual. It doesn't mix with the material body. It's just like oil and water. They never mix. You just put one drop of oil in one bucket of water, it will never mix. But why we think that we are this body? Because of our impure consciousness. When we fall in this material world, the three modes of nature, they just bind or they cover over the consciousness. They just cover it up completely. And then the consciousness starts seeing as much as it can see through that covering. So as much as it can see, as an example is given in Bhagavad Gita, just as in fire is covered with smoke, or a mirror is covered with dust, or embryo is covered by the womb. So fire covered by smoke is very subtle, very little covering, very thin, fine covering. It will get removed very quickly. But a mirror covered with dust, it has some thick covering. But when the baby in the womb is covered with the embryo, the embryo covered with the womb. That is really thick covering. So that is mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. But even if somebody is in mode of goodness this lifetime, he could be in mode of passion or ignorance next lifetime. Or even if he's in goodness most of the time this lifetime, he could be in passion and ignorance at different times of this lifetime for some percentage of time, some percentage of his life. So the living entity, although spiritual, it starts thinking that I am this body. In the human beings, this consciousness is less covered. Animals and plants, animals or birds, it is more covered, and plants, it's completely covered. And then living entity starts acting like that body, whatever body we have. And then this is my family, and that is your family. This is my community. That is your community, and that. This is my country. That's your country. And the whole life is just wasted like that. Completely wasted. And what do we get out of it? Nothing. Next life. That's it. And whatever karmas we have done in this lifetime, whatever desires we have developed in this life, they go with us. And next lifetime we will start all over again. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has used the word manas pratyaksha to describe the experience of material life. Manas pratyaksha means that which is experienced only within the mind. The actual pratyaksha is described in the Bhagavad Gita. When one submissively hears the instructions given by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita, which constitute the king of all knowledge, Rajvidya, and the most confidential of all information, Rajguhyam, by associating with such a spotless spiritual knowledge, one can directly experience one's eternal nature. By experiencing one's eternal nature, one becomes thoroughly religious, blissful, and eternally engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. But that happens when one submissively hears the instructions and then work on those instructions. Otherwise, no. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has quoted the following words from Srimad Bhagavatam. The mind is like an impetuous horse that even persons who have regulated their senses and breath cannot control. Those in this world who try to tame the uncontrolled mind, but who abandons the feet of their spiritual master, encounter hundreds of obstacles in the cultivation of various distressful practices. Encounter hundreds of obstacles. O unborn Lord, they are like merchants on a boat in the ocean who have failed to employ a helpsman. The importance of spiritual master has already been indicated in the previous verse by the words Guru Devatan. Unless one accepts a bona fide spiritual master in the authorized parampara as one's worshipable deity in life and soul, there is no question of controlling the mind or overcoming the duality of material life. So this is how difficult it is to control the mind, material mind. Although it is material and soul is spiritual, but mind actually in this case controls the intelligence and controls where the soul is going to go. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has made the following comments on this verse. Control of the mind is a result of living a life of devotional service to the Lord by the influence of fixed devotional service. The accepting and rejecting mind can stop its thirst for sensory enjoyment apart from Krishna. How? By the influence of fixed devotional service. And this is what we were discussing in Bhagavad Gita today. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसा संगस्तेषु भजायते संगा संजायते क्रोध संगात संजायते काम कामात क्रोधो विजायते. Thinking of contemplating of the on the objects of senses, one develops attachment from them. From attachment comes lust. Lust, if it is fulfilled, becomes greed, and at some time it will be non-fulfilled, it becomes anger. And anger then ultimately leads to bewilderment of memory, intelligence is lost, and the soul then falls down again, falls down in the material pool. And how to avoid it, how to fix it? By engaging the mind in devotional service, fixed devotional service. In transcendental Krishna consciousness, there is no contradiction, pettiness, or lack of ecstasy. In other words, it's not like a material object which always proves temporary and constantly miserable. Having forgotten Krishna, the conditioned living entity is suffering the misdirection and perversion of his own so-called intelligence. The living entities are fragmental parts of the supreme shelter Krishna, but have fallen from Krishna's kingdom of spiritual pastimes. Because of forgetting the Supreme Lord, they become prone to sinful life and turn their attention to dangerous material objects, which fill them with constant fear. Prone to sinful life, turn their attention to dangerous material objects, which fill them with constant fear. If one desires to subdue the mind, which is constantly engaged in the duality of mental concoction, one must take to the devotional service of Lord Krishna. And why not other processes like yoga or jnana yoga, hatha yoga? They don't work. They don't work in controlling the mind. For some time it can give us a feeling of have controlled the mind, but they don't really, because we haven't given a positive activity for the mind. And the most positive activity is to engage the senses in the Lord of the senses. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Peruchate. Or Rishikesha, Rishikena. No, Rishikena, Rishikesha. Yeah, different senses engage in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, no way the mind can be controlled. And mind, it is compared to what? And an impetuous horse means uncontrollable horse. And some places it's compared to a monkey. Monkey, not just an ordinary monkey. Monkey that has gone crazy and who has tasted datura. Datura is very intoxicating substance. And this kind of monkey, a mad monkey who has tasted datura, good luck in controlling that monkey. That is mind. It can create havoc in the life of people, and it is doing that. And ultimately what? It's funny when you see people, ultimately what? They just want to be controllers. They think we can control. We can control few people around me. We can control a whole lot of people. We can control the whole city. I can control the whole state. I can control the whole country. I can control the whole world. Not gonna happen. But with the mind, which is uncontrolled, we're thinking we can control everything. The first thing to control is our mind. But that they never think of. So proprietor, controller, enjoyer. And if I'm not enjoying in whatever I'm doing, then what? Then I'll go crazy. If I have power, I'll kill somebody, I'll capture somebody, or I'll torture somebody. Give me enjoyment, give me pleasure. Well, the pleasure is not in these senses, but I'm trying to seek pleasure in these senses. So somebody who has controlled the mind, or somebody who has had some knowledge, some devotion, he can see what nonsense are you doing. He can completely see clearly what nonsense. But people are not ready to listen. That's why a person like Srila Prabhupada had to come. And this is the exact words he used: you fools and rascals. But he could use that, and he was so pure, so powerful in his presentations, and so advanced in bhakti. That his words had immediate effect, just like the words of Narad Muni has effect on various people. So all we can do is somehow try to serve Prabhupada by doing some preaching work. That's all. And hopefully Prabhupada will accept these offerings, these services, and he'll make us more eligible. That's all we can do. But otherwise, it's just the game of mind, material mind, and that too, and because material, it's not in control. Okay, sorry, I only covered one words today. We'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.